live in just a minute. We'll be live with Andy Owen from TechSmith in just a minute. My name is Matt Pierce. We've got a great topic we're going to be talking about. Of course, I am monitoring the chat today. And don't forget, level up every day. Hey everybody, my name is Matt Pierce. I am the Learning and Video Ambassador for TechSmith Corporation. Grateful to be here with everybody today. We got another hopefully fantastic episode for you guys. We're going to be talking about managing files for better, faster creation. And we'll be talking a little bit more than files. So if you're just joining in with us, we'll talk about some file management stuff to make your videos and images faster. But we're also going to talk about some features in Camtasia and Snagit that will also do this, that aren't necessarily file related, but will definitely be valuable tools for you to know about. So, one thing I've noticed about going live is there's always challenges. And so one of the things I've just realized, we're going to introduce our guest here, and I was going to bring him on. But guess what? Your image, Andy, got resized completely. So I'm gonna have to figure out where you are in my double screen here. I'm just gonna switch to you. So Andy Owen, before I get to Andy, I guess real quick, let me say a couple other things because there's never not a day without challenges here. It's just the way it is. So first of all, before we get going here, I always like to talk about TechSmith Academy. If you're unfamiliar with TechSmith Academy, it's a free online learning platform. You can go learn from video all about things like writing scripts, creating storyboards, shooting video, screen recording. We've got stuff about making tutorial videos. We've got some fantastic interviews with expert video creators, with instructional designer, learning professionals, all talking about using multimedia. So go check it out at techsmith.com/academy or academy.techsmith.com. So, Andy, I'm going to bring you up here now and let's see. Oh, hey, you're back, but everything changed between that brief moment. So welcome, Andy Owen.
Hey, let's hope everything's working and I'm actually here. I think I'm here.
You're
Feels
here.
Like I'm here.
It's just like, it's funny when I have literally just your solo shot, and all I can see in frame is your eyes. It somehow got blown up so large. So
eyes are one of my best features. So that's. No, thanks for having me, Matt. Despite I think that's what's great about the show.
I mean, literally everything is breaking right now, Andy. I can't even see you anymore. So.
Not even my eyes?
I can't know. Basically, I've got what looks like a black screen. So I don't know what's going on. Like literally, the live camera just moved. So Andy, we can hear you. I think. In this mode, we can hear you.
Some people can see.
Everyone can see that everything is literally falling apart right now. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we at least can hear you, and I think I can show your screen if we want to go there. So we're going to be talking about, for everyone listening and watching this, I apologize for all the craziness that's happening already. But so Andy works at TechSmith. Why don't you introduce yourself, and I'm going to see if I can get some camera back going here.
I will. I don't know if I was on camera for that moment, though, but I mean, all of us working from home have had a similar experience where, just now we sit down to do this live broadcast and UPS knocks on the door. I was just like, I can't help you right now. I'm sorry. No, I'm Andy Owen. I have been working for TechSmith since June 2017, so about 3 years now. Actually, 3 years now. And prior to working for TechSmith as a video production specialist, I had a number of jobs. Right out of college, I was a media director for a large church. I was the video studio director for a school district for 3 years, where I ran the high school video studio and multimedia support for all of the district. I worked in a post-production house for a little while. After the school district was around 2008, and that was when the recession hit and all non-union employees were laid off. And so I ended up, through a series of events that were kind of connected, starting my own company unwillingly, but it worked out great. I always just wanted to be a video producer. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur, but it ended up being a great opportunity. So for 10 years, I ran my own company, and my wife had been 7 months pregnant when I was laid off. So I was also a work-from-home dad during that time. So I got to raise my kids while working for myself, and it was just the best of both worlds. And when they were both in school full-time, I was ready to go back to working for a large company production and really focusing on what I love. So that's where I'm at now. Oh, and the company was mostly wedding films. I also did corporate and branding films as well, but mostly it was storytelling for weddings, which I absolutely fell in love with and didn't think I would. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's me.
We have somewhat of a picture, and it literally keeps making changes to my screen. So I apologize
Wait
to
till you
everybody.
find out that's actually me.
Uh, gosh,
I'm doing it on this end.
I knew you would sabotage me. I can't believe you would do this to me. We'll just keep going here because it's the best, literally best we can do, and I think we can still show your screen. So, Andy, you've had so much experience. I think it's really crazy to think about like all the videos you've worked on. I mean, you've made probably what, thousands of videos in your lifetime.
Probably, if not very high hundreds, but yeah, I've made a lot of videos.
And you've made a lot. I mean, probably worked on a lot of them at the same time. Like if you're doing weddings,
Right,
you're
right.
doing multiple projects, and that's got to be a challenge to stay organized, right? Like
Well,
just because how do you keep up with it all?
exactly. And it's a problem not just in like, okay, now I've got all these files, I need to keep them organized. It's also a problem of like, I'm constantly getting new ones and I'm in different phases of each project. And in some cases, I've got other people working on these projects with me. Maybe I've got, additional people filming them with me. Maybe I've also got additional people editing them. I used to have freelancer edits. Anyone would be able to do them very quickly for me, and it would save me time and energy. So I would kind of farm those out to colleagues, and then I would be working on the larger creative edits. But that meant when they were done getting all these files back, same video files I had. So am I going to duplicate the files? Am I going to just duplicate the project? Am I going to, lots of, my hard drive would have filled up very fast had I not stayed on top of how I'm going to manage all of these assets. And so a big part of my job, and it always felt like such a waste of time, even though what it really was saving me time in the long run, was to go through and organize the footage. And I wasn't so meticulous. I had friends who were so meticulous, change every clip's name. And almost kind of change the clip name so they knew what wedding it was from, what film it was from, the dates. And I would do gigs of footage and all
Wow.
small individual clips. And so I didn't want to name every clip. There could be 80 clips in one folder. And so naming them was a big task on its own. For me, it was all about folder structure. And so I think I can show you my screen a little bit too, if I'll show you just how I do folder structure. And I don't know, is it on right now there, Matt?
I'm transitioning your screen right now because you can't like.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say, Andy, I've never seen this happen. So there's something about like so we use OBS to push the stream, and I can say that it's never looked like this before, or done anything. I've never seen this happen before. I am just mystified. But we can see your screen, and
No idea how curious I am to just go over to YouTube right now and watch our video live as we're doing it, but that's probably not a great idea. What's happening?
yeah, I mean it's and then of course we were fighting like it was a waste of time, and I just want to say I know that feeling, right? Like it's the same thing, and there's lots of things that are like this, but like what comes to my mind is going through my email and really cleaning it up so I only have like I get rid of all the junk and really get rid of stuff I need. It feels like such a mundane waste, but at the end of the day, if I can get through the rest of my emails and find the things I need faster, man, that's such a huge thing. And I think it's such a little thing we think about, or maybe we don't think about, but with video production, or really production of any media, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's almost like file hoarders. You know what I mean? Like we just have so many that we get overwhelmed, and we need to really clear out the project folders so that we can clear out our mind a little bit and kind of keep things straight. So if you can see my screen, then I'll just say the first thing about all of this is like I knew I wanted to show you guys kind of my template for how I work. And so to keep myself organized very quickly, cheat the alphabet system, right? So I wanted to put this at the bottom of my folder, and I started it with the letter Z, lowercase z, underscore, and then templates. This is my file. I can do the opposite. I can start with an A. I can start with letters. And you'll see over here, my main folders are always segmented into groups. Now, this is just for a video production, folder. You could do this for any type of project, but for me, it splits up into projects, and that would be my Camtasia project, my Premiere Pro or Final Cut project, depending on what you're working on. Footage is exactly what it sounds like. It's what I filmed, and actually sometimes within the footage folder, go in and also create under that, like episode 1, episode 2, etc. And that to me, not EO2. That see how it changed the alphabet. And the beautiful thing for this is then I can still just pour footage into it, but I can separate it out. And I wouldn't actually recommend this. I don't have a better example. I would say episode 1, name of episode, right? Because very quickly, when you start doing a series, even of YouTube videos, which is what I'm kind of thinking of right now, if I start calling things episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, you lose track of what the subject was and what it was about, because no one goes on YouTube and watches things in episodes necessarily. So I want to think, oh, this is the one where I talk about how to capture your screen. So I would name it that.
Right, for sure.
Audio, audio I usually just separate out by music and narrating. You could also do sound effects if you had anything like that. Graphics is just images, obviously. Documents usually for me would be scripts, but I need to come with the project. And then this can happen in Camtasia. This can happen in, anything. When you first open a project and start working on it, it's always labeled untitled. And some people forget to change it from untitled to something applicable. And this is, when I worked in the school district, this is one of those things I had to teach students all the time was, if you leave your project as untitled, Untitled 1, Untitled 2, again, just like the episode naming convention, you're going to run out of memory space for what is actually in that project. So name it appropriately. It can be, project 1 and then the name, that's fine. So change it away from untitled. And the reason I bring that up is because when you go into exports and you want to start sharing your final video, hey, I've got this MP4 I want to throw on YouTube, don't export it as, we all know that curse. I don't know. Matt's run into that one and say, oh, could you make a couple changes to that final, and then it's final 1 and final 2 and final and all caps final. So rather than naming it that, I really do. I'll name it after the project, which is how to capture your screen or capture screen, and then I put V1 after it. So just tells me it's version 1, and that way when I'm done and everything's organized and I'm ready to archive my project, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the old ones, if I want to keep them, into my drafts folder, and I'm going to put the final into my approved folder. So that for me is just my folder structure for how I work on projects. Again, this was a template one, so there wasn't a lot of things inside of it, but it saves you a lot of grief, because every project, if I click into, and I'm just going to, let's see, I'm going to click into this one that I worked on. Yep, every project, you go into your next folder you're about to work on. And in fact, I was telling you, Matt, didn't know if I was going to bring this up because I haven't used it myself in a while, but if you don't want to keep a template folder, there's also like free software out there. The one I can think of is called Post Haste for post-production. But you download that, you create a couple templates. I had one, that was wedding templates. I had one that was corporate templates. I had one that was story templates. And it's just folders, and it'll do it on a Mac or on a Windows. And that way it'll create your folders, save your folders, and anytime you're ready to start a new project, you just have it export a new template for you, and boom, you're off and running with your standard formatting. So that's how I do my videos.
Yeah, so Andy, I'm just going to let you know, the stream has been really wonky here, so hopefully people are able to see everything. They can definitely... In these audience...
Should I turn my microphone on? Is that important?
Hey, I've made that mistake before.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. But what you're saying, all this stuff is really good, right? Like,
oh, you're back.
Did you lose me, Andy?
Slowly, but you're still. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so yeah,
you're garbly.
Yeah, we're getting a little garbly, so we apologize to everybody. So one of the things I want to talk about with the file structures that I think we've talked about is just the value here is not only like for your own speed, but for when you're working with others too, right? Like you're working with colleagues. If I know you have a project, I can always go and find it, and then I can always know what to look for. If I'm looking for what's produced, or if I'm looking for a piece of the audio or footage or whatever, I know where to look, I think, and that's a huge thing if you're working across the team.
It's that idea of setting up standards so that everyone knows what they're looking for and where they can find it. In fact, you mentioned earlier in the plug for TechSmith Academy, and that's something that we worked on as a team. It was, myself, the other video producer, and you, and man, we were sharing files all over the place in the early days especially. And so we were working off a network drive, but we knew we had a naming convention set up for projects. We had a naming convention set up for video files and for everything. So it wasn't hard if he needed to stop working on something and share it with me. I could jump right in and pick it up. We didn't end up doing that all the time, but it was available and it was quick and easy if we needed to. And that is a huge time savings. If someone needs to take a week off for vacation or has a sick day or something, you can either keep plugging away at it or at least know where to find something if they're not available.
Well, and I think the one thing that, maybe the case that I think is even where I've come across where it's even more valuable is when someone has left. the
Yep.
organization and like you didn't work with their files at all, but then all of a sudden someone's like, hey, could you go back and tweak this video or do something with this content? And you're like, oh my gosh. And I have dug through literally tons and tons of content just to find something and then never be able to find it because it wasn't organized.
And that is one of the most frustrating things, because especially it's not even just organization, it's naming convention, right? Like, what if someone's named it after, okay, well, I was working for this product video, so I named it after the product, but someone else didn't name it after the product. They named it after like the first line in the script, or they, named it after something. I can't read people's minds. And so when I jump into a messy folder, it's one thing, but jumping into a folder where the naming convention doesn't immediately strike me as sensible, it's pretty hard to dig through. And it's not even as though someone did it on purpose. It's just you name it on the fly and you let it go, and years later someone's trying to dig through old archived footage and they can't find what they're looking for. So yeah, it's a huge time saver. It's a huge team saver, really, so that you can jump into other projects or go find old projects.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing I was going to say, there's
go ahead. Go for it.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't tell if my internet was slowing down on you again. But one other way, the naming convention is, of course, dates. Z templates. You can use A if you want to. And Matt, you're frozen up. I'm just going to keep talking because I'm assuming I'm still going.
You're still going.
Regardless, the date convention is also one that works really well. You start with the year. You go into awesome. I was going to just keep rolling through anyway, even if I missed some things. We'll put it on the behind the scenes of this episode. And you get your year, you get your date, and you get your month. And now I've lost your video completely.
I'm saving
but
bandwidth here.
So I don't typically use that. That's a smart move. Because yes, alphabetically, audio is going to come before video. In fact, video is going to be at the very bottom. In fact, I call it footage. Just for a while, video was showing up at the bottom, and I wanted it higher than that, so I changed it to footage. I always want projects are going to be the first thing I'm looking for. Footage, I'm going to then put into the project. Audio comes next. Graphics. It was a workflow for me. I was already using that workflow, so projects should be the first thing. Footage should be the second. Audio third. So it wasn't just like randomly deciding exports. That's the final thing with my project. I'm done with it at that point. In fact, once we've added a 06, and that's for localization. When we send things out to be translated by our localization team, we'll put it in 6 for localization. But it's rare that I need to make a separate folder from it. Normally, I just archive the entire project. So.
Yeah, for sure. No, so Andy, I did find I'm making stuff up as we go here. That if I share my screen with you,
I'm impressed.
So they should be able to see you now because I've got you up in a window that's basically like the preview window where I set the settings to get your camera to come through. I can show you there, but I can't. So, this is one of the things like that's right. It wouldn't be live if we didn't have problems. So okay. So we talked about for your video file structure. I think that's really good. I think it's super important. I hope people get that. And it's not just videos, right? It's any creative, I think any creative, and I won't, actually I can just pull these over here because I've got the screen up now. You can't see it, Andy, unfortunately, but if I can find here, like I created a presentation folder. So basically my folder is, I've got all the years because I do presentations every year, right? And then I've got, let's say like 2020, I basically put the year. Even though it's in a 2020 folder, I still, that way it's always clear where it's at. And then I use like 01 for January. Then I've got usually the name of the conference. And then you click into that and you might have a variety of different, depending on how many presentations I'm doing. Like I've got one up that says I've got like an image. I've got other materials and documents. Sometimes they need me to sign a release. I need to do other things that aren't part of the presentation, but they're valuable. I'll have my PowerPoint folder, which will have the actual PowerPoints. Some will be, oftentimes my files are so big, I can't share them with the conference. So I make a smaller version that's just kind of compact information. And then if I have any videos or I'll put those in a folder because those either might go into the PowerPoint or it might be videos about promoting the presentation. So that's how I use it. Because I'm making videos, but also outside of videos, I found that this just helps me stay organized. And I always, because again, I want to be able to go back and pull on different things, like I reuse slides or reuse images from slides later on. So similar concepts. So yeah, for sure. So let's move on from here, Andy. We don't have to. Yeah, so I'm still here. It's it's I'm glad this is happening with you because you understand all the challenges. But let's actually move back to let's move kind of on because I think one of the things we talked about, like there's file structure, but then there's lots of other ways you can speed up this creation process. So let's actually talk about some of the things that are available within some TechSmith products. And I wanted to talk about Snagit tags because this is kind of like a file structure organization, but if you're using Snagit, it's a way to organize your content within Snagit. So if you have your screen up, Andy, if you're going to get Snagit up there, I'm going to I had zoomed in on your screen so we could easily see the file structure. So just let me get that back into shape here because otherwise it's too big. Nope, you should be good. You should be good. So now we can see your screen. We can see your toolbar. We can see all of Snagit. So.
Okay, cool. So the thing I like, I mean, there's a lot of things I like about Snagit. Anyone who uses Snagit knows it's a great piece of software. No plug intended. But really, one of the things that I was not using for the longest time is down here. When you go in the editor, you've got this option up here in the top left that takes you into the library. The library, I may have done that too quick, but here we go. The library, see, I captured my YouTube page, or our YouTube page. The library up here takes you into all of your files, your images, your videos, and you can separate them out that way. And sure, if you want to search for just the video or images that you've created, that's definitely one way to do it. But when you're working on similar projects all the time and you're using Snagit for those projects, maybe you're filing a bunch of crash reports, maybe you're just trying to capture spreadsheets or capture text out of spreadsheets, you can create a tag. So if I was trying to do this capture of our YouTube page, I can go into tags right down here and say, boom, there's my social media tag. It's already ready to go. If I didn't want to use that one, I just go back and say, no, actually, this is a tag about feedback. And boom, it files it with all of those. I'm going to put it back because it actually is a social media tag. And so once I've tagged it, I go open to my library, check out my tags. That was a social media one. And here's all of our social media tags. And that one's not going to load right away. There it is. It's down here. I had already tagged it. So that shows up right in my grouping of tags. And I've got a whole bunch of different names. I have trivia. Those are just goofy images because I was creating trivia with a bunch of friends and coworkers. But video UI, say I've got user interface feedback I want to provide someone with, or I'm looking for questions. I have my own tags. These are ones that work for me. The other thing I love that I only even more recently stumbled onto is the applications sorting. Snagit's smart enough to know what you're capturing. So for me, if I'm working in Adobe After Effects, I can say, hey, these are, and they didn't change because those are all the same UI I was working in. But it does know by software. It can go to Camtasia. These are things I've captured. Hey, there's us. Look at us. There's Camtasia snags that I've made. It just recognizes the software I'm in. So down here's a user notification one. That's going to be a crash report or an error. There was a legacy system extension I wanted to show our IT department. So it's really cool. You can separate it out by application. That keeps you organized, or you can separate it out by the tags that you yourself create. And of course, I've got a lot more that are untagged than I do that are tagged. This other one, actually, this is credit to another coworker of ours, Dave Patton, talked about our swipe files. So say you see an idea online that you're like, oh, that's really creative. I want to put that in the back of my mind for something to use later. swipe files. We were doing last year. We were doing a summer sale, and so I'd captured a bunch of these. And you can see the dates from this year. I was just recreating it. But this is similar to the swipe file I had last summer when we were trying to come up with a bunch of different ideas that represented summer to us. These aren't things I was going to use. These are just inspiration pieces. So that's one way that I use Snagit to kind of keep myself organized, right, in my own library.
So Andy, if I can imagine watching this and someone saying with all these things, with whether it's file folders or you're talking about tags, I mean, the auto stuff that Snagit does is fantastic because then you don't have to think about it. Someone's probably saying like, that's really a lot of work, or I'm not an organized person. This doesn't feel like something I'll just keep up with. What would you tell them?
Sure. Have you ever had to go searching for something, and how long did it take you? Just the other day, I got an email from a coworker where they were looking for a video file that I'd created months ago, but I knew right where it was, not just because I'd created it, but because my file structure is always the same. I know where I would have archived it to, and I would say it is a little bit about creating a habit. I'm not going to just say that there's a magic bullet, you're going to automatically be able to do this, no problem. You do have to create that habit, like with anything in life. I think tags are a real easy one to create because, say you're at work, you're trying to talk about, again, crash logs maybe is something that you're trying to report with Snagit. Gosh, keeping those in one place. I was trying to of time to go back and try and find something we thought was going to be relevant, weeks, months later. If we just keep it organized in the first place, it saves us such a headache. Because I think we've all been there when a coworker says like, hey, do you know where to find that file? I really liked what you shared in that meeting, but I don't know where it is. Do you know where it is? I hope you know where it is, because it happens all the time.
Yeah, Andy, sorry, I tried to get you up on the screen and we lost a little bit of that so it's not my day.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna go through this because some days you just got to know when to quit. But I do want to talk about a couple other things. If you got your screen up, if you could share with us again, because I love Snagit tags. I'm going to be honest with everybody. I am terrible about using them. And it's one of those things, like, I think you need to spend some time thinking through your structure, right? Like, think through what is it that you want to organize. Like, is it by project? Is it by theme? Like you said, like social media, that kind of makes sense, right? But like, is it feedback? Mm-hmm. Like, take some time to think through your structure, whatever's going to work best for you. Because even the file structure we showed earlier isn't going to be the best, right? It's you do what is going to work for you. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, if you want to bring up for us, either we can stay in Snagit actually real quick here. Let's talk about tools that allow you to move quickly and create quickly, but because they're the ones you use all the time. So let's talk about like favorites.
Okay. Yes. All right. So going to favorites, I've got a little camera over here, so I've got my own thing. So favorites. I didn't even need to bring the drop down. Look at that. For those of you not familiar, I think it came up in Snagit 2019. Snagit has favorites. This is one of my, ironically, favorite features of it, because it does allow you to keep some of your most commonly used styles right in one place. For a lot of people, you use Snagit for three things, right? I mean, Snagit is a rich program. There's lots of depth to it. There's lots of things you could do, but really, when you get down to it, on a daily basis, you're using it for A, B, and C. Well, A, B, and C can now be saved in your quick styles, in your favorites. So, and you can tell, again, I've recently wiped my computer, so I don't have all my normal ones saved here. But I use blur a lot. So I can just go into my blur tool and know that, hey, this is going to be the blur that I want. and boom, simply marking that star throws it into my favorites. So now I go over here, and there it is. And actually, these are more the common ones I use anyway. Maybe not the text so much, so I can remove that just by checking the star and turning it off. But if I want to use certain stamps, and I often will use no stamps that check marks, I can throw that into a favorite, and I can turn no, and throw that into a favorite, and boom, just like that. This is the only one you need to have open. The only style or tool that you need to have open if you've really aggregated your favorite ones into there. You may go back later and say, oh, you know what, I wanted to use that simplify tool they were talking about. And yeah, that may be a little harder to throw all your favorites into. Totally exists. By the way, how cool is that? I just pulled up the simplify tool and was like, whoa, it's all TechSmith's colors. Oh, because TechSmith's UI is over on the left there on our website. I just thought it was, whoa, that's really good. But anyway, yeah, so you can mark these things. Maybe, this I can't. Anyway, well, there you go. SUI's a tough one, or Simplify is a tough one just because it's a really rich tool. So not every tool is going to have it. Phil's not going to have it. But your shapes, your text, your callouts, especially callouts. Callouts is a great one. This new tool that has the callout with the arrow as well is one of my favorites. And if you don't like any of these colors, maybe I want to change mine and make yellow. You saw. Boom, it's a different yellow than this one over here, so I want to make sure I have it, and then I can add it to my quick styles, except right now it's got a red handle, so I'm going to change that because it's going to bug me if I don't. Boom, yellow and yellow, plus, add it, star, now it's in my favorites. So I just very quickly created a custom call out and put it into my favorites, and I can remove this one because I like the yellow. So yeah, I think favorites and Snagit was a game changer.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that, again, it's thinking through what are the things you're going to always be doing, what fits your style, because as you're creating content, and I think, Andy, you can tell me what you think about this, but I think as you're creating lots of content, the more you can do the thought process, the thinking through what you're going to need, it's like if you need to know what font you're going to use, why make that decision when you're in the editing?
Exactly.
But make the decisions now up front so that way you can just always have it. Because I know sometimes I make videos, and it might be something as simple as like I'm making a promo video for a talk I'm going to give. And it takes me a long time because I got to go out and find all the bits and pieces, the colors, and whatever it is I might need. But if you can prep that work, you can just get in, and then you can get in that state of flow of editing or creating, and that's going to go a lot faster. I think that's kind of the big idea here today, right?
Absolutely. And I think that even goes to, my background in video production. Gosh, there's so much more that goes into pre-production, whether it's scripting, storyboarding, planning for the actual production itself. Sometimes it's gathering assets, gathering things that you're going to use on set. But that's all a part of file management too. Like if I want to be ready to go in Snagit when I open Snagit, I don't want to then every time go through and pick which tools I'm going to use, pick which ones I'll probably get. I'm going to put them right in my favorites to begin with and set myself up for success.
Yeah, I mean, I also can recognize, especially if you haven't seen the success from it, like you haven't felt the benefits, I can see people saying, "Oh, it's boring, it's not fun," because it's not the fun part.
Right.
The fun part is shooting something or recording something or if you like writing, and this part is like, I mean, unless you're really into organization, it is the part that you're like, I really don't want to have to do this, but every time I don't do it later on, I'm just kicking myself. And it's a lesson I've had to learn too many times, Andy.
Well, and you're right. It's not the fun part, but without it, you don't get the fun part because the fun becomes stressful, right? Like when you're trying to get into the project and then you have to decide on the font and then you have to decide on the colors that you're using. And then, oh my gosh, wait a second. What are we going to look at, when this is on screen? Like, when you get into your workflow, whether it's video editing or creating a presentation, you want to get into a workflow and actually start producing. But if you're then making all the decisions that you could have made at the beginning of this process, it's just going to slow you down. It's not going to be a joyful process. And I think it can be with just a little bit of prep work, and a little bit of file management, a little bit of asset management if you're using Snagit in here. I mean, gosh, I was working with my intern the other day and telling him I've got these great ideas for an intro to a show, an outro to a show, lower third for the show. We're going to use this font. We're going to stack it. And of course, I'm leading us into our next piece as I talk about it. But Camtasia now has that option as well. Did that too soon?
No, that's great. It's a great transition. It's like you've done this before.
And so once or twice. I actually don't have Camtasia up and ready to go. I don't know if you've got it on your screen.
I can, but if the
I can
problem is
launch it.
if I bring it up, we lose your audio, and we haven't had your camera
Oh,
already all day. So, but I think the
gotcha.
concept of favorites is similar. Like, I think people just need to understand that you can take any of these tools and make one. Like, you take a behavior or a call out, and you can make your
Yep.
own act the way you want it to, and then you can favorite that so you always have it. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, favorites is the exact same. See, and this one I have used favorites because I'm in here a lot. So I mean, for me, some of my favorites again are the blur tool, and then the shading tool, and a lot of the sketch motion tools. I use custom animations and I use clip speed. Those are regular ones that I'm always going to have available. But I'm even talking about templates. So this is something that is new in Camtasia 2020, and it's great. Now you can use any one of these. They come with a bunch of templates ready to go. But for me, I was creating. I think I had like a lower third, right? So I went into the library. I'm trying to remember where my library was. If it was the Camtasia 2021, it was okay. And I grabbed a lower third, and it wasn't this one. But basically, the idea is here's my lower third. I've got an intro that I want for this video. I'm just going to grab any intro for this video. Oops, there goes my doc. Go away, doc. I've got my intro for the video. I've lost my mouse now. There we go. Everything's, see, now it's breaking on my end. That's how this is going to go. I'm going to copy and paste the intro and manipulate it for the outro. And I can either send these things as a package to my editor, or I can send them as a template. And it's super, super easy to do. So I can send them as a package or as a template. The cool thing about the package is it'll send like colors and anything I've decided on. I can create placeholders. Let's see if I can do this on the fly. I can't always do it. Add placeholder to timeline right there. And a placeholder is going to say, listen, we're always going to make this video the same way. There's always going to be an outro on the end. There's always going to be a lower third right there at the very beginning, and there's going to be an intro. And now I've got a template ready to go. I've got my intro that I don't know if it's playing back very well over the bandwidth and everything. It's going to fade out. Good. There's a placeholder. Hey, this is Andy talking about such and such. Here's my lower third that comes on screen. And voila, just like that. All someone has to do then, and I'm just going to use this as an example. Let's see if I've got motion backgrounds. Let's pretend this is footage of me talking to the camera. I'm going to drag this footage onto this placeholder. So. What's that? Yeah. So yeah, drop that onto Ripple Replace, and boom. Now I've just added my media to the timeline to that placeholder, and there's the lower third still and the intro before it. So templates for me are huge because again, if I'm working with anyone else, if it's not just me, even if it is just me, and I want that consistent look to a video, all you have to do is create a template, share it with your coworker or your editor, or even save it for yourself to be able to come back and use later. You can name them, you can save it in your library so that you've got it for later. So.
Yeah, and I think about like if you're creating a series of videos, maybe it's like a 5-part series. That this is a great way to do this. If you're creating, I know some people we've talked about microlearning, the idea of like making really small bits and pieces rather than making really long pieces. In fact, I was in a webinar yesterday and we talked about this idea of like you don't have to make one big thing. You can make several smaller things.
Right.
And I think, in that case, you can really set this up so that you don't have to, again, taking away some of that thinking process, the hard decisions like, oh, well, what did I do? The remembering, especially if I know a lot of times I'm in and out of video, right? Like I'm not in video every day. Like you probably are making videos every day, but like for me, it might be once a week or once a month. And I forget the decisions we've made about like what it should be like. And this just clears the path for that.
It does. And I mean, you can save your color palettes, within your settings here, or not settings. I forget sometimes I don't even remember. Themes. Thank you. Yeah. You can set your color palettes. So like if I'm working on a project for Camtasia or for TechSmith as a brand or whoever I'm working on a project for, I have all of those color palettes that are pre-decided. I've got whatever fonts we decided on. And so it's such a time saver. And yeah, like you said, like I forget, even I work in it all the time, but I've got, however many different projects I'm working on at a time. So I want to make sure that I'm on brand and consistent with as many of those as possible.
Yeah. So, and I mentioned this to Andy. We were talking just before the stream, but I was talking to a friend of mine who works at a company, and she spent 3 days going through and building up some templates. She built out, like all these things that they needed. And she really expects that effort, like 3 days is a lot. but that will save her a ton of time going downstream, because she now doesn't have to think about those. She just has them available and she can share it with coworkers. So if that saves her, and I think I said 15%, but if that's not the right number, I apologize. But maybe that's even if it's 10% per video.
Yeah,
But then you
absolutely.
multiply that times 100 videos, and that's a
Right.
huge time saving. That's like real money you're talking about saving.
Absolutely. Yeah, that just you can't beat that kind of time savings. And again, consistency, because now not only have you saved time, but you know that you're going to have this solid look throughout everything you do.
For sure. So and we'll just mention, we don't need to really show this, but Andy, if you wanted to bring up Snagit again, the other thing, so
Yeah.
Camtasia's got templates, which is brand new in Camtasia 2020, but in Snagit you can there are also templates. Now these are different ideas. But the idea is to, like, for job aids, handouts. The idea is you can grab a couple images and you can throw it into a pre-made template that might be step by step. So again, you've got options across the both platforms, both products, to help you make something that is going to hopefully save you some time. You
Absolutely.
know, and again, these are a little bit different in idea, because you're not creating like placeholders per se, but you're taking images you already have and organizing them. Great for step by step. Great for kind of displaying information together in a really organized way. So, yeah, like, again, kind of the whole point here is, if you want to move fast, if you want to be faster, a faster video editor, this is a big part of it, I think, is being organized and spending the time to get organized.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just no beating that kind of space for your mind. Also, especially for those of us, and I know not everybody watching necessarily is in a creative field, but for those of us in a creative field, the more mind you can spare from kind of the minutia of setting up a project and organizing your folders and doing that, gosh, the more time you can actually spend on being creative and trying to figure out creative solutions to what you're doing.
Yeah, and I would say that probably applies. I mean, yes, creatives for sure, but like, I think about a lot of the designers instructional designers, and I mean, it is a creative field, sort of, but there's more to it than that. So I think any of these things, like
Right.
customer education, technical support, right? Like, the more you can set these things up, the better off you are going to be.
Yep.
And then, of course, you got to keep up with it. And again, there is a cost to that. I want to be very clear, because I sometimes think we have recommendations for people and they're like, well, no, but that actually cost me. Well, yeah,
Right.
it has the upfront cost, but if you can stay with it, you're gonna it's gonna be so much more value. In fact, one of my pet projects here, Andy, that I've been working on is I've started using a tool called Notion. It's kind of like Evernote and some other tools that are out there, but I've been able to create I'm starting to create my own wiki. That's for my work
Oh,
brain, I'm calling it. Like, because there's so many
nice.
things I have to remember, like the
Yes.
hex code for the player that goes into the TechSmith Academy. Like, I don't have to look that
Absolutely.
up every time. What's that stupid hex code?
You know what? And that's one of those things. Even everyday things, like my wife and I have a grocery list that we save as a Google Sheet, and we can go in there and we do a big monthly grocery trip. It's weird, but we love it. We do a big monthly grocery trip for non-expirable foods, and we have this sheet. And the first time we set it up, it took hours, if not a whole weekend, to get everything in our cabinets that we knew we replenish onto the sheet. We got the prices. We went through, I think, the stores that we went through, that we get groceries at. While we were there, we were writing down the prices for everything. I mean, this was probably more detailed than anyone needs to go, but we've been using that same spreadsheet probably for 5 years. We add things onto it, we take things off, we adjust prices if we feel the need to. That has kept us so on budget just by doing that prep work the first time. And yeah, again, it took a really long time to set up. Once it's been set up, though, that thing has lasted for a long time and saved us a ton of grief.
Yeah. Oh, and I love that analogy, right? Like, you're doing that work and it all is coming in budget. And I would imagine when you were producing video as an independent, company, that really matters, right? Like, because you got it, speed
Absolutely.
is of the essence.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, especially at weddings, a lot of people see me for those 8 hours of the wedding, and they think, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see this. He's put in all this hard work this day. We should be able to see it tomorrow." But obviously, editing is the big part of the job. But people still have that expectation of it should be done quickly. So I need to do everything in my power to kind of keep that project on track. And that's one of the very simplest things I can do is keep myself organized and the people that I work with organized.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Andy, I apologize first of all to all the technical issues we had today. We did get to see your screen, so that is a win. Of all the
Awesome.
things we
I didn't
needed,
see him on my end, so.
well, of all the things we needed your screen, and the camera was
Yes.
bonus. And I apologize that we didn't get more of you on here. But thank
That's
you.
okay.
Maybe we'll have to make a quick recap video that actually works. So
I think people are fine not seeing my face. Let's be honest. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, who knows how the
No, this
stream
is great.
actually worked, right? There's always challenges here, and thanks to the audience. Like, we know that from an audience perspective, that it can be frustrating when there's no audio or no picture and things aren't working well, and totally get it. 100% of the way there with you. We're striving to always do the best we can. Unfortunately, sometimes the gremlins get the best of us in terms of the stream, the internet. We are like a lot of people in the United States, working from home, which, I don't have a T1 line or fast line. So doing the best we can.
You're far.
Yeah, I'm out on the rural country. I wish we'd get faster internet here, but I can only do so much. Waiting for Starlink maybe to come above me, or something. Elon, if you're watching. But also, like the streaming software today. You know what? I can tell you, I am probably more frustrated by the experience than you are, because what we want to do is create a great experience for everyone that watches, give you great information, and of course, we've got great guests, and so we want to make sure we're sharing their knowledge the best as we can. So again, Andy, thank you so much for joining us today. You just hang on for a second. Let me wrap some things up here, and then we'll call this good. But you and I can chat and debrief a little bit about how we can do this better. So. All right, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget, you can go get on-demand content that will have sound and will have picture at the TechSmith Academy. Go learn about things. I don't think we have a course about file management. We'll have to think about that one. But you can learn things about script writing, storyboarding. We can learn about getting better audio in your environment. And check out the interviews. If you know some of these folks, they are high-quality people that a lot of them are successful creating video for things like YouTube. Very, very good content, and it's worth watching a lot of their interviews all the way through. Now, we've also taken those and cut them up into small pieces, so you can go watch our kind of the best of advice that we've pulled from their interviews. But check out their interviews. It's good stuff. Go to academy.techsmith.com or techsmith.com/academy. 2 ways to get there. Choose the path you want. So we will be here next week. We're going to change schedules a little bit. We're going to be on Tuesday next week, 11 a.m. And the reason we're going at 11 a.m. because we have Jay Baer. And if you don't know who Jay Baer is, go look him up right now. He's the president of Convince and Convert. We're going to be talking about some research that we ran with Jay. Stuff about virtual presentations, about the power of videos, connecting with people on video. So do check that out. We're hoping to get all this technology figured out by before then. We'll be working on it to make sure it's a more seamless experience, but we will see you next week. And again, go check out the Academy, check out the products of TechSmith if you haven't seen those, if you haven't had a chance to try them. So with that, we appreciate everyone who tuned in today, and we will see you next week. Hopefully, maybe I can get things. See, things are still broken. I can't get, basically nothing's working, so I'm just going to cold close it. Thanks everybody, we appreciate you tuning in.